Hi, I'm Karen and welcome to my NFL picks. This is week 15 already. I can't believe it's almost the end of the regular season. So let's get right to the picks. A lot is going on. Again, there seems to be a lot of exciting things going on in the NFL this season. So the first game which is going on tonight is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Atlanta Falcons. I can get the flag up. There it is. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they're 4-9. They won 41-14 over the Buccaneers, and I called that one last week. Gabbert had 217 passing yards and 2 interceptions. The team did have 8 penalties for 80 yards. He was sacked 1 time for 8 yards lost. They made 3 interceptions for 14 yards. And Maurice Jones-Drew scored 4 times, setting a franchise record for career touchdowns. So he's playing very good. They are doing very good. But they are playing the Atlanta Falcons, who are 8-5. They won 31-23 over the Panthers. Ryan had 320 passing yards. They had 5 penalties for 50 yards. Ryan was sacked 3 times for 12 yards lost. They made 2 interceptions for 33 yards. Matt Ryan made 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to Julio Jones, and along with a field goal and touchdown pass in the third, erased a 16-point deficit. So they were losing for most of that game, and then they came back and got that win. As I was like, oh my God, don't tell me the Falcons are going to lose to the Panthers. And then, lo and behold, Falcons did win. So I think tonight, Falcons are going to pull out another win. Now, the next game we're going to talk about is the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, they lost 34-37 to the Giants, which was a nail-biter of a game. They, went right there to the end, and they lost they could have tied the game with a field goal at the end and missed the field goal, and their kicker made it, but timeout was called. They had to kick it again. It was blocked, and they lost the game. Tony Romo had 321 passing yards. They had 10 penalties for 51 yards, and the missed field goal. So that was it's an interesting game. Now, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 4-9. They lost 14-41 to the Jaguars. Freeman had 181 passing yards, 3 interceptions. They had 12 penalties for 97 yards. They had 6 fumbles where they lost 4 of them. They had 3 sacks with 14 yards lost, and they made 2 interceptions for 12 yards. Bucs are having a lot of problems. I think the Cowboys are going to pull out the win. Now the next game, Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Now the Miami Dolphins, they lost 10-26 to the Eagles. Moore had 95 passing yards and 1 interception. Losman had 60 passing yards. They had 7 penalties for 81 yards, fumbled 3 times where they lost 2 of them, sacked 9 times for 60 yards lost, and Moore was out in the second half with a head injury. So Dolphins are having some problems there. The Buffalo Bills, they lost 10-37 to the Chargers. It wasn't pretty. Fitzpatrick had 176 passing yards, 2 interceptions. Big Pen had 19 passing yards, 1 interception. They had 1 penalty for 5 yards, sacked 1 time for 10 yards lost. I just think the Bills are having too much of problems. Dolphins are having problems too, but I think the Dolphins are going to take this one. They've been on a winning streak here towards the end, and Bills have been going down, Dolphins have been going up. I think the Dolphins should take it. Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears. Seattle Seahawks, they played very good. They won 30-13 over the Rams on Monday night. Jackson had 224 passing yards. They did have 9 penalties for 61 yards. And they had that block punt, and I thought they were playing very good football. They were, they were strong. They were good. Chicago Bears, They're 7-6. They lost 10-13 to the Broncos in overtime. Haney had 115 passing yards. They had 8 penalties for 69 yards, 1 fumble, sacked 4 times for 29 yards lost. They made 1 interception. They made a lot of mistakes. They basically handed that game over to the Broncos. And, you know, I think the Seahawks, they played really well. I just think the way the Bears' luck is going and the way they're playing, I think the Seahawks are going to win that one. The Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. Now the Tennessee Titans, they lost 17-22 to the Saints. Hasselbeck had 44 passing yards. Locker had 282 passing yards. They had 8 penalties for 54 yards, sacked 2 times for 12 yards lost. And they were stopped twice in the final moments with a chance to win. So the Saints stopped them when they had a chance to win that game and score points, and their Saints defense just put a stop to those Titans. They just could not, their offense could not score. Now the Indianapolis Colts, we all know their luck. Now, they lost 10-24 to the Ravens. Orlovsky had 136 passing yards, 1 interception. They had 3 penalties for 15 yards, sacked 4 times for 19 yards lost, and they made 1 interception. Now, Orlovsky, he was looking good against the Patriots. I think he's doing well. I think that they're playing a home game. They're playing in Indy. I think they're doing much better. I'm putting my faith in the Colts. The Colts, I think, are going to get their win. Orlovsky, I have enough faith in him to pull out a win against Tennessee. I think they're going to do it. I think this is their week to get a win. Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Green Bay Packers are undefeated still. They won 46-16 over the Raiders. Rodgers had 281 passing yards, 1 interception. They had 5 penalties for 35 yards. They were sacked 4 times for 26 yards lost, made 4 interceptions for 18 yards. They had 4 touchdowns and a field goal in their first 5 possessions. So they're just piling right through the Chiefs. There was no stopping them. Now the Chiefs lost 10-37 to the Jets. Palko had 195 passing yards, 1 interception. They had 11 penalties for 128 yards. Come on, guys. Sacked 5 times for 39 yards lost. And Coach Haley was fired and is now out of a job. So they have a coaching change there. So I tell you one thing. Green Bay Packers are going to I think they're just going to fly right over the Chiefs. The Green Bay Packers are going to win. No problem. They're going to handle those Chiefs with no problem. Now, the next game is the Cincinnati Bengals and the St. Louis Rams. Now, Cincinnati Bengals lost 19-20 to the Texans. Dalton had 189 passing yards. They had 3 penalties for 27 yards, 2 fumbles, sacked 1 time for 5 yards lost, and made 1 interception for 23 yards. Now the Rams lost 13-30 to the Seahawks. Bradford had 193 passing yards. They had 5 penalties for 30 yards. They just couldn't get things going, couldn't get things together. I think the Bengals are going to be able to beat the Rams without problems. New Orleans Saints and the Minnesota Vikings. The New Orleans Saints won 22-17 over the Titans. Drew Brees had 337 passing yards. They had 11 penalties for 95 yards. They sacked 2 times for 14 yards lost. Brees threw 2 touchdown passes to Marquise Colston in the 4th quarter, and they stopped the Titans twice in the final minutes from winning the game. So they just are doing very good. But they're playing the Minnesota Vikings that lost 28-34 to the Lions. Ponder had 115 passing yards, 3 interceptions. Webb had 84 passing yards. They had 5 penalties for 37 yards, 5 fumbles where they lost 3 of them, sacked 4 times for 43 yards lost, and the Vikings are going up against the Saints, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it. The Saints are going to win. Now the game I'm looking forward to, the Washington Redskins and the New York Giants. Now the Washington Redskins, they are 4-9. They lost 17-34 to the Patriots. Grossman had 252 passing yards, 1 interception, 8 penalties for 73 yards, 2 fumbles, but they lost one of them. Sacked 2 times for 8 yards lost, made 1 interception, but gained no yards. And the New York Giants, they won 37-34 over the Cowboys, which was such a nail-biter, as I said before. Eli Manning had 400 passing yards. Yay, Eli. And I tell you, everyone is saying he's a top 5 quarterback, and he put his money where his mouth was. And I tell you, Eli is doing it. He is the guy that I want, my go-to guy in the fourth quarter to win the game. They had 6 penalties for 55 yards, down by 12 late in the fourth quarter, and Eli and the Giants got their win. Jacobs had 101 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns. Hakeem Nicks had 7 catches for 154 yards. Mario Manningham had 2 catches for 62 yards. Jason Pierre-Paul blocked that field goal to keep the win and not have go into overtime. These men were just, they played well when they knew what they needed. They knew what they needed to do, and they got those plays done. And they just were playing awesome. Eli was right on. He's having the best season of his career. And I tell you, the Redskins, they're not going to be able to do it. They're playing in New York, and the Giants are going to win. Now, the Carolina Panthers and the Houston Texans. The 4-9 Panthers lost 23-31 to the Falcons. Cam Newton had 276 passing yards and 2 interceptions. They had 5 penalties for 50 yards, sacked 2 times for 17 yards lost. Now the Houston Texans are 10-3. They won 20-19 over the Bengals. Yates had 300 passing yards and 1 interception, 5 penalties for 50 yards, fumbled 4 times, so they lost 3 of them, sacked 5 times for 32 yards lost, and they led the biggest drive in Houston history through a 6-yard touchdown to, Kevin Walter, and won it with 2 seconds left, which clinched the first playoff berth in the franchise history. So the Houston Texans are going to the playoffs, and the first time, they're excited. And you know what? They're just going to keep that momentum going, and Houston is going to win. Now the Detroit Lions and the Oakland Raiders. Detroit Lions won 34-28 over the Vikings. Matthew Stafford had 227 passing yards. They had 10 penalties for 76 yards. Sacked 5 times for 19 yards lost. They made 3 interceptions for 49 yards. Now the Oakland Raiders, they lost 16-46 to the Packers. Palmer had 245 passing yards, 4 interceptions. They had 11 penalties for 89 yards, 1 fumble, sacked 1 time for 7 yards lost. Raiders are just not doing too well at this time. I think the Lions are going to be able to win this game. New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. This is the game of the week that everybody is talking about, and everybody can't wait to see this one. New England Patriots are 10-3. They won 34-17 over the Redskins. Brady had 357 passing yards, 1 interception, 4 penalties for 47 yards, sacked 1 time for 5 yards lost, made 1 interception for 2 yards. Rob Gronkowski set an NFL single-season record for most TD catches by a tight end for New England when he made his 14th and 15th catch. So he has 15 touchdown catches and made his record. Patriots are just going strong. Now the Denver Broncos won 13-10 over the Bears. Tebow had 236 passing yards, 1 interception, 4 penalties for 28 yards, 2 fumbles, but they lost 1 of them. Sacked 5 times for 15 yards lost. Matt Prater had a 51-yard field goal and a 59-yard field goal with 2 seconds left, and it's the 6th straight win, half of them in overtime. Tim Tebow just, it's like divine intervention is coming in for him. I think this is going to be a very good game. It's going to be a close game, but I think the Patriots are going to win. I think just it's going to come down to the experience of Tom Brady, I think. but you could have the divine intervention for Tebow. New York Jets and the Philadelphia Eagles. The New York Jets won 37-10 over the Chiefs. Sanchez had 181 passing yards. They had 4 penalties for 22 yards, 1 fumble, sacked 3 times for 26 yards lost, and made 1 interception with no yards gained. Now the Philadelphia Eagles won 26-10 over the Dolphins. Michael Vick is back, and I heard Young is back too. 208 passing yards, 1 interception. They had 7 penalties for 69 yards, 1 fumble, sacked 4 times for 20 yards lost, made 1 interception for 35 yards, and scored 4 times in 9 minutes. So, Eagles did very good. They just, destroyed the Dolphins there. And at first my head was telling me the Jets, but my gut is telling me the Eagles. So you know what? I think the Eagles are going to upset the Jets, and this is my upset special. Cleveland Browns and the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland Browns, they lost 3-14 to the Steelers. Colt McCoy had 209 passing yards. They had 6 penalties for 54 yards. Colt McCoy is out with a concussion. Harrison was suspended for a game for his hit on Colt McCoy. The Arizona Cardinals are 6-7. They won 21-19 over the 49ers. Skelton had 282 passing yards, 2 interceptions. Kolb had 2 passing yards. They had 4 penalties for 45 yards, 2 fumbles where they lost 1 of them, and they had 2 sacks for 14 yards lost. And I think with this matchup, the Cardinals are going to win. I think I forgot to mention to you that the Miami Dolphins coach was fired too, so the Dolphins are playing with a new coach. Baltimore Ravens and the San Diego Chargers. Now, Baltimore Ravens won 24-10 over the Colts. Flacco had 227 passing yards, 1 interception, 5 penalties for 40 yards, 1 fumble, sacked 2 times for 15 yards lost. Terrell Suggs had 3 sacks and forced 3 fumbles. So now the San Diego Chargers are 6-7. They won 37-10 over the Bills. Rivers had 240 passing yards. They had 5 penalties for 50 yards, 1 fumble, sacked 2 times for 24 yards lost, made 3 interceptions for 73 yards. But I think the Ravens are going to do it. Chargers have just been too inconsistent. I think the Ravens are going to do it. And last but not least, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the San Francisco 49ers. This is going to be another good game. Both teams are 10-3. The Pittsburgh Steelers won 14-3 over the Browns. Ben Roethlisberger had 280 passing yards. They had 12 penalties for 97 yards, 2 fumbles. Ben Roethlisberger is a little beat up though. Now San Francisco 49ers lost 19-21 to the Cardinals. Smith had 175 passing yards. They had 5 penalties for 35 yards. Sacked 5 times for 32 yards lost, made 2 interceptions for 16 yards. And again, as I said, they're playing in San Francisco, and I'm not voting against the 49ers, because whenever I do, the 49ers win. So, I think the 49ers are going to take it. My question of the week, though, is, with all this, with this hoopla about, having rookie quarterbacks come in and starting the game, and these veteran quarterbacks then are like, okay, bring the rookie in, get rid of the veteran. Whatever happened to rookie quarterbacks sitting on the bench for a couple of years, learning the craft from the veterans, and then when the veterans are ready to retire, the rookie steps up and has all the knowledge from the veteran. Peyton did it, Eli Manning did it, Aaron Rodgers did it. All the great quarterbacks, they sat on the bench for a few years, they learned the craft from the veteran, and then they came out and were great quarterbacks. And I know it was a necessity with Sam Bradford to throw him out there as a starter, but now it's like, rookies should be starters. I don't understand why it's a foreign concept to have a rookie sit on the bench for a couple of years. But that's just my opinion. So for my wrap up for week 15, my choices are the Falcons over the Jaguars, the Cowboys over the Buccaneers, the Dolphins over the Bills, the Seahawks over the Bears, Colts over the Titans, Packers over the Chiefs, Bengals over the Rams, Saints over the Vikings, Giants over the Redskins, Texans over the Panthers, Lions over the Raiders, Patriots over the Broncos, Eagles over the Jets, Cardinals over the Browns, Ravens over the Chargers, and the 49ers over the Steelers. And those are my Week 15 picks. Enjoy your week of football, and see you next week.